Okay. Welcome to Head in the Clouds. My name is David, and I'd just like to tell you about this movie that I recently seen. It's titled The Imposter, and it was released in 2012 in the UK. And it's a documentary centered around a young man in Spain who claims to have two. Oh wait, let me read you the plot summary on IMDb. A documentary centered on a young man in Spain who claims to a grieving Texas family that he is their 16-year-old son who has been missing for 3 years. This it's a it's a well very well done documentary about a missing child who went missing, and I believe, if I remember it right, uh, 94, and they found him in, well, claimed to find him in 97, 1997. And this family, uh, their their son goes missing, and they're searching for him everywhere. And then he turns up in Spain 3 years later, which is uh, amazing. Like, it's like they get a random phone call about this uh, tourist couple who found this young boy, and they have police come and pick him up, and they take him to a children's shelter, and the children's shelter gets the information from him. He's claiming that he's this missing child that's from America, and it's a crazy tale that I recommend you go watch it on Netflix. That's where I've recently seen it, and it's um I don't want to spoil it for you, but spoilers, because I have to spoil it to talk about it. So starting now, I'm gonna start spoiling it so I can get into the story a little more. So if you, I recommend going and watching it, stopping it, go and stop this, go watch it, come back, listen to me talk about it. Okay, so I'm gonna spoil it. So I think I've said enough. So bear with me on this one. So the the family gets in contact with this young man, and they when the his sister goes to see if this is really him, and the 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 boy, which is actually a full grown man, uh, pretty much convinces, well, doesn't really have to convince this lady who goes and sees if this is her brother. Uh, she's very, she's open arms, just takes him in, embraces him into her family, and gets him, shows him all these pictures and of the family back home that he hasn't seen in 3 years. So she's telling him all who these people are. She's like, "Don't you remember so and so? This is your aunt. This is your uncle. This is your mother. Don't you remember?" And all this, and he's just pretty much keeping to himself, nodding like, "Yes, yes, I do. I know, kinda. I vaguely remember." And he goes into, I guess, the social workers, and they ask him, "Do you remember these people?" And he's like, "Yeah, that's so and so. That's this person." So he was kind of got lucky, and uh, pretty much convinced the social workers that he's this kid. And by this point in the story, you know, well, he from the beginning, you know this guy's pretty much putting up a front the whole time. and he's getting away with this. Like you would think, like, man, there's no way he's can pull this off so easily. It's like there's always that little inkling of like this is like way too easy for this guy, because he dyed his hair. Uh the kid had some tattoos on his hands, so he got tattoos on his hands to match him. And they got some video footage of like him meeting the family at the airport when he comes from Spain to the United States, and he's like pretty much got like the a coat on, the like if you ever seen the Invisible Man, that way his whole face is pretty much wrapped up. This guy's got sunglasses on, his hat low, like a scarf around his neck, covering half his face. Like, and they're saying like he's really standoffish. He's not really saying much. So it's really like this, and this family still embraces him. It's crazy. And you see him come home, and they're like, "Well, we don't want to, like, talk about what happened over there and what he had to go through, because it's traumatizing for a young kid that was, I'd say, like what, 12 at the time, who got kidnapped. What they believe. So, and they're like, we don't want to talk to him about it, so we're just gonna go on like everything is normal. So, and social workers in America start to question like, you need to bring him in so we can talk to him, so he doesn't, so we can integrate him back into society like a normal person. Like we want to evaluate him. So it takes him a while, but eventually they talk him into it, and he tells this social worker this elaborate story of how he got kidnapped and was entered into sex trafficking, and with high up military ranking officers who would give him different experiments, like all types of different stuff, like to change their eye colors, which he doesn't even have the same eye colors that match this kid that went missing. So, but he weaves this huge story about how he was locked in a room with a whole bunch of other kids, and eventually he made his escape and found out he was in Spain, and that's why the guy had a different accent. So he had like he spoke English, but it was you can tell he had an accent, and that's why he told him that's why he doesn't sound the same, and that's why they told him that he couldn't speak in English. That's why he has the accent that he has, and it's just a crazy story to really think about it. And I even got to the crazy part, but he tells this whole story about how he was kidnapped and all this. Then they're like, okay, that's convincing. Okay, they believe him. They send him on his way, and then what else happens? Then life goes on, and then the news hears about this kid, so they get an investigator to go investigate him, and he finds him, and the guy gets on the news, and they have news footage of this guy, and this guy looks like pale white. It's really like off. Like you know this ain't the same guy. Like this ain't the same kid. I think the guy was like 20, 22, 23, and he was posing as a 15, 16-year-old. And you got the news there, him telling them the story, what he told the social worker of the being locked in a room and being in sex trafficking and all this, and this whole elaborate story. And as the investigator is watching the news, he's pretty much in the same room, like a room off to the side, watching the interview on a little TV, and there's a picture of the boy when he was little, and he's looking at both the pictures, comparing them, and the investigator's like, this doesn't line up. This guy looks nothing like this little boy. So how is this even? How is his family even believing this? He's looking at the pictures, and he's like, this isn't the same guy. And then he comes up with this whole thing about telling someone apart by their ears. And he said that's how they found Martin Luther King's assassin. It's something to do with his ears, like the shape of it. It's like fingerprints, he says. So what he does is he gets a picture, takes it back, puts it on his computer, and matches up their ears. And it's two different sets of ears. It's like that's not the same. Your earlobe or something to do with your ear shape. You'll know what I'm talking about once you watch the movie. It's like it's not the same. So he tells him like this ain't the same guy, and they send him to another like a social worker, like a what do you call him, therapist or something like that. And he has the kid retell the story, and they realize like the guy's looking at him and he doesn't change his tone of voice, his pupils don't dilate. That's what he says, and just his story and the way he recalls the story, it doesn't match up to someone who would have gone through that trauma. So he comes to the point like, no, this guy's lying. So, which brings up the point, like, well, he tells the family, it's like the guy you have staying with you is not truthfully telling who he is. He's lying to you, basically. This ain't your son. And he tells them he tells another social worker who is closer to the family, and she tells the family, and then when they go to pick him up, they act like they had never had that conversation. So what the guy, the so-called imposter, he's kind of getting the notion like they know that I'm not this guy, so why do they keep allowing me to stay here and keep going along with it? And he comes to the conclusion that there's something fishy going on, and there might have been something involved with the missing kid that involves this family internally. And that's when things get just creepy, really. It's like these people invited this guy that they knew wasn't their son into their lives and kept him there, and supposedly convinced themselves that this is their son. And on the video, on the documentary, they're claiming that they had nothing to do with it, and they were shocked to find out that he wasn't their son. But all these social workers and therapists are claiming that they told them that wasn't their son, and they still allowed him to stay with them, which was crazy. It was just, and then eventually they came to the point where they were like, okay, this isn't our son, because he turned himself in. He said, I was lying. So, and then that's when they came out and said, oh, well, this is shocking. Like, no one told us this. We don't remember ever having these conversations, which is just crazy. And then this is all happening. The investigator that the news called in to find him, to get that news interview, is searching and doing background checks on all this family, and comes to the conclusion that there's in their old house that there's someone buried in the backyard, which then he goes and starts digging. It's worth watching. It'll leave you like just sit back for a moment like, whoa, what is this? It's very impressive. It's a well done documentary, I gotta say. Like, I recommend watching it. Let me see. It's done. I'd say it's done pretty well. It's about it's a run time of 90 minutes. And it's pretty well done, I'd say. Um, let's see what else do we got. I'm looking at their IMDb page, and it's it's a very well done documentary. Like it's shot very well. Like it's pleasing to the eye. It's got a lot of moments where they like redo like reenact things, and it's well done. It captures it pretty good. It's kind of haunting in a way, but worth checking out. I just thought I'd share that with you. Uh, if you've seen it, leave a comment because I would love to hear your opinion about this one. Uh, so yeah, it's kind of old. It's back in 2012, but I've recently seen it. I recently popped up on my Netflix, uh, and yeah, check it out. It's it's pretty crazy story. It's very strange. So yeah, check it out. Until next time, adios amigos.